Hey guys, Tom Barclay here outside the G-Tech Stadium, Brentford Stadium, after an excellent win for Spurs. 2-0 win away at Brentford, one that I don't think a lot of fans were probably predicting, given how it's been going recently and the fact that there's so many injured players at the moment, but a healing win for Spurs, you could say. All the jibes about Dr. Tottenham recently, at the risk of sounding a bit like Alan Partridge, that was definitely what the doctor ordered, a victory like that today. It wasn't Ange ball, I would say, save for Pape Sarr's excellent killer goal for 2-0. That was classic Ange ball, if anything, that was beautiful. But all round, most of it wasn't that style of football. It was not exactly backs to the wall, but much more pragmatic, you'd say. Energy, what's the word? Sort of ensuring that they kept their energy, not getting too tired, playing deeper. And a little less sort of looking to make those sort of fast runs in behind, and a bit more, as I say, pragmatic from Spurs, and probably just what they needed really, given the schedule they've been up against and the amount of players they've been missing of late. Today I think it was 10 players they were missing, and if you don't count Kevin Danzo, I don't think they would ever. You can't really count him because he signed for basically overnight, so he was never going to be available. But 10 players missing. So and remember, this is a Brentford side that are pretty much been pretty free scoring at home this season, so it shouldn't be overlooked. It was the first victory for Spurs, home or away, in the league since beating Southampton 5-0 back in mid-December. And that was, to be honest, against a very poor Southampton side, even though they won the other day. An excellent win for them, for Tottenham, given like I said, the amount of good results that Brentford have managed this season. It's not surprising that Jamie Carragher, before the game, thought Spurs would concede at least 3 goals today, given the players they were missing and the way that Postecoglou started play. To be honest, as much as fans can sort of have a go at Carragher off the back of this result and the fact that they kept a clean sheet, I think a lot of fans would have been expecting the same. I certainly was. I probably predicted 3-2 Brentford. So it was pleasantly surprised with how well Spurs played and how relatively comfortable they were all round, really. Brentford had their chances, and I would say a big part of this win was kind of things were going for Spurs today that they haven't really of late. I don't think it's the first time that Spurs have tried to play a bit more pragmatically and a little bit energy conserving, that was the word I was going for, phrase I was going for earlier, than they have done in the last few months. But sometimes just goals have been going in, which they didn't today. I don't think Brentford, they looked a little bit toothless, particularly, which was surprising given they had Brian Mbeumo up front. He's such a good player, 4 goals in his last 4 against Spurs. But Spurs sort of handled it pretty well. Having said that, there were still moments that Brentford could have probably taken their chances a bit better. Djed Spence in particular clearing off the line in what was probably his best performance in a Spurs shirt. Between that and the Liverpool performance at home in the Cup against Mohamed Salah, maybe given the strength of opposition there, although he was playing on the other side here against a very good player in Mbeumo and was just excellent. Rightly won man of the match after the game, and it just sort of goes to show you what a fantastic impact he's made since coming into the team. Maybe he should have been in there sooner, you could definitely argue, but let's just enjoy the fact that he's playing with confidence and making an absolute fantastic impact, and I'll come on to it in a minute. But yeah, scrappy pragmatic victory here for Spurs. They faced 37 crosses in this game from Brentford, who really tried to put them under siege from that point of view, and they dealt with them pretty well. The goal itself, that was the decisive goal, not the Sarr goal, which was lovely to watch, but by then you kind of saw Tottenham probably seeing this one out. The key goal just before the half hour was a scrappy one and probably underlined this overall display from Tottenham. So Son fires in a corner. The goalkeeper for Brentford wasn't there. Number 1, Mark Flecken, who was out with a thigh problem. It was their Icelandic number 2, who's got limited experience in the Premier League, to say the least. This was his first start, and he tried to he was sort of got nowhere near that corner as Bissouma sort of was standing in front of him, and the ball went cannonaded off Vitaly Janelt for an own goal. It was an ugly goal in an ugly victory overall, but one that was much needed for Spurs, given the ugly form I suppose they've been in recently. From Spurs' sort of starting lineup point of view, the big surprise was Mickey van der Ven was out. Ange had probably hinted that he wouldn't play 90 here. He said he wouldn't play 90, but I think the expectation was that he would play, having made his comeback against Elfsborg, played 45 minutes there on Thursday after nearly 2 months out with his latest hamstring problem. But the fact that he wasn't in the squad at all was a bit of a surprise. Ange said before the game it was about managing his minutes, and he said that he was hopeful that he'd be back by the end of the week. I may as well go straight to his post-match quotes on Mickey to sort of clarify what he meant. He said he denied it was a setback. He said the plan had been to play him 45 minutes again, but after sort of discussing it amongst themselves and with Mickey, he felt it'd be better off that he would have a full week's training instead, and get him right and ready for Thursday. So the plan is still, it seems, to have Van de Ven ready for Thursday. And he also said with Spence coming back in, because remember wasn't eligible for the Elfsborg game. You presume by the time the next Europa League game comes around, Spence will be back in the squad. You'd hope so, given how well he's played. But he was obviously ineligible for the final league phase game against Elfsborg. But with him coming back in here, and I suppose his pace against Mbeumo, the feeling was that he'd be able to. This would give the chance to have Van de Ven on ice again, was the phrase for this game. So he was out, but that took, I think, Spurs' missing players to 10. I could go through them all, Vicario, Hidogi, Van de Ven, Romero, Odegaard, Johnson, Werner, Solanke. The list goes on. Madison. I mean, a brilliant, her first team, pretty much a first team, not far off, full of first starting players. Just shows you the problems that Spurs have had. But we've been saying that for months now. That's quite how it's been. And normally they seem to tire throughout games because, unsurprisingly, given the intensity they play out, but also just the fact that these same group of players have been playing week in, week out, twice a week really, without any rest. But Ange managed to manage the team quite well here. Bergvall came on at half time for Mikey Moore, who started the game. But after a very good performance against Elfsborg, but he looked tired at the end of that game, so I think that was probably the plan. Bergvall comes on, Basuma came off in the middle of the second half, and they sort of managed it. It was quite from a managerial point of view, I feel like he managed the situation well in terms of making sure players didn't get too tired in this game, and that was sort of crucial to the victory really. I mentioned Spence. Yeah, he was just excellent, wasn't he? He's just so composed when he's on the ball. He always never seems to be under pressure. There was moments in the second half where he's very deep near his goal line, and he's being pressed by Mbeumo and other good Brentford players, but he still looks to make the positive pass or receive it under pressure, and it's kind of surprising really when you see what's in his skill set that it's taken this long for him to really get a chance under Postecoglou, because that's the kind of player he wants to play. I suppose the accusations of Spence previous in his career has been about attitude, not about technical quality, as much as Conte didn't seem to fancy him. But I think we're all pretty surprised with how far he's exceeded expectations since coming into the team, and now I think that's perhaps his biggest asset is his composure. It doesn't matter who he's up against. He doesn't seem to be. It doesn't seem to faze him, and that kind of big game mentality is crucial at the top level. I mean, from where I can see, often you do see players who get a bit overwhelmed, but Spence doesn't seem to be in that category, and since he's got the technical ability to go with it, as long as he can keep his focus like he has been recently, there's kind of doesn't seem too much of a ceiling with Spence. But bear in mind he's playing left back at the moment, and he's not even natural there. He seems to be able to switch from side to side against whatever player he comes up against, whatever quality player, from whether it be Salah and Mbeumo, week in, week out, and seems to manage. So suddenly, out of kind of, not by design, but by kind of the circumstances, Tottenham have a player who looks like he's got real potential and real, as I say, ability to play in the big games. So we're going to need to see a bigger sample size, but in every game he doesn't seem to be phased at all, and this was another classic example of that, and he rightly won man of the match on that front. Like I say, clearing the ball off the line from I think Fabio Carvalho's overhead kick just before Spurs scored the second goal was crucial to this victory, because that goes in 1-1. The last few minutes it could be all hands to the pump, and the way it's been going for Spurs, maybe Brentford score again, but that was a crucial clearance and an excellent display from Spence all round. And then from there, about a minute later, the one sort of moment of beauty that sort of is exactly what Ange is going for in his style when it's at its best and when players are at confidence. But it was the one moment of beauty that we saw in the game from Tottenham, I think, to make it 2-0. So really clever move. Well, good movement, good passing in the middle of the pitch. Bentancur releases Son, who gives it to Pape Sarr, come off the bench, and his finish was really calm and cool and clever at the near post to kill the game off. And and in the end it was fairly comfortable, which seems sort of mad to say given how much I think most people, including myself, were thinking a draw here under the circumstances would be a good result for Tottenham to try and arrest the slide. But they've gone far further than that by getting a very impressive 3 points, which can really set them up going into what is perhaps a season and even reign, from the manager point of view, defining week going into these two cup games, in particular the Liverpool game. Obviously got transfer deadline day on Monday. We're still wondering at this point whether Spurs might make another move for another centre-back. There's been talk about Axel Disasi. I'm not sure if that's going to come off. At Chelsea, has obviously they've been in for a forward. Interesting to see Rando Kolo Muani. You might have seen he scored twice for Juventus today, so underlying what a good player he was. So they're after the right players, they just can't get them. In the attacking options, Matthias Tell as well, we all know about that. So it sort of remains to be seen if they still go for someone. I mean, bear in mind, they have got a lot of these attacking players coming back from injury in the very near future. So perhaps at this point, I'm not saying this is what I've heard, but just logically, you would not be surprised if Spurs went about holding off at this point with the attacking players and not bringing anyone else in because of that reason. But we'll wait and see. And then obviously Liverpool in the semi-final second leg at Anfield on Thursday, which could be a transformative result if they can win there to Postecoglou's reign, to this whole, the way this season is being viewed. If they can suddenly make a final, and let's be honest, at this point they are staying up, you'd think. 10 points now, the form's surely only going to get better. It can't get worse from how it's been, particularly with the players coming back. So I don't think anyone really thought they were being sucked into it, but there was a sort of feeling that if they started to take it for granted, how bad their form was, there was a possibility that they could get sort of sucked into it. But that's kind of stopped now, given this result. And funnily enough, after the final whistle, or maybe after the second goal, Spurs fans were sort of ironically cheering, "We are staying up." I think there's a sort of relief on that front. The league is a write-off. I can't see like a second half sort of amazing winning run from Tottenham. They're just not that good, and the other teams are too far ahead to suddenly get into any kind of European competition from the league. But I think we're not far from saying the league's a write-off, but they're going to be safe and they can just purely focus on the cup. So we go into this massive week with Liverpool and then Villa after that. Like I say, hopefully Van der Ven is back in time for the Liverpool game, based on what Postecoglou was saying. It sounds like he's expecting that to be the case, and obviously Kevin Danso should be available to come straight in if they so wish. At this point, Danso was signed obviously too late to play in this game, and I think you might have seen on social media him sort of tweeting a picture of him watching the game. He wasn't at the match, but he was watching it on TV. And let's move finally on to his comments after the game on Danso. He spoke about it before the game and afterwards. He said that it's great to get him. Obviously they've been light in defensive positions. He thinks he's a great fit for the way he wants to play. Danso himself wants to kick on as a player. He's quick, he's really good in one-on-ones, and he's good on the ball from Postecoglou's point of view, and from Danso as well, because of the way he described himself. If you haven't seen the video I've done on him just before the game, go and check that one out. So he seems to be really happy with Danso. He was asked specifically about Disasi, whether a deal had been made, and he just said, look, I've been he did the old, I've been at the game, so I've been focusing on that, so ducked that one. But he was asked about potentially another defender, and he said kind of what he said throughout the whole period of this transfer window. He said it's not just about getting another body in, but he did say we are thin defensively. So watch this space, I suppose, on another centre-back coming through. And a key part of that, obviously, is Rade Dragazin. Still no update on his situation, but Ange did say it doesn't look good. He said we'll have more information on Monday, and he's seeing a specialist then. But let's be honest, the fact that they're making moves already for Danso and potentially another centre-back suggests it's probably a long-term one. So if it's not, at this stage, that will be a surprise. On the game itself, Ange said that it was, he was happy with the result. He did say it was just one game, and we do need to rectify the league form. Obviously, it's a phrase he's used a lot about rectifying the form, turning it around. But he said it was great for the fans and the players in particular, because it's been so painful of late with the results. So he wasn't sort of getting ahead of himself, but he was, he was also not denying the sort of good feeling that came with a victory like this and the relief that comes from it, really. And then I've already mentioned the Van der Ven comments, so that pretty much wraps it up, to be honest, from Ange's perspective. But overall, a really good win. That's 2 wins in the last, 3 days or so. Clean sheets. Elfsborg getting them through to the last 16 without avoiding a playoff. In the Europa League, winning here to sort of basically arrest the slide in the Premier League and stop any kind of worries about relegation. Transfer deadline day tomorrow. See if there can be any more good news on that front. For added numbers, players coming back, going into this massive game against Liverpool on Thursday, which, as I said before, can be season defining. They've got a good start with that 1-0 victory in the first leg, which, you can't underestimate what a big result that was, given the 17 days prior they'd lost 6-3 at home to Liverpool. So if they can go and take that and use all that energy and the way they played today defensively to Anfield, then they've got a chance. And then this season can be transformed from being one of despair at times, particularly in the league, to one that could be historical, which is a point that Ange has consistently made, even when he's been, in his words, under the pump throughout this process. He's constantly talked about the potential to turn it around and still have amazing things happen from this season. And until it's not possible, if they do lose at Liverpool, they do lose at Villa, then things may change. But at this stage, it still feels like all of those things are possible, and there's reason to believe. And performances like this and results like this only add to that. So well done, Tottenham. Let's see what happens in the next few days. Cheers, guys.